Welcome back to Tales from the PowerAge, and today we're going to take it back to 1985 and 1986 to the classic Marillion era of Misplaced childhood. So how are you doing, guys?
Yeah, good. Cheers.
Good,
Cheers, good Elf. Before we kick off, though, there's a couple of things that we'd love you to do. We'd love you to subscribe. We'd love you to get involved in terms of the comments, the likes, etc. It really helps our algorithms. And if you are watching this for the first time, we do chapter the different parts of the podcast as well. So if you want to jump forward to the album, you can do that. Or if you want to jump forward to the actual gig, because two of us were at one of the shows from this tour, you can do that too. So let's kick off with the press ads, Gav.
Yeah, very briefly. So these are the album press ads. And I think what they were trying to do here is kind of just restrict showing the whole thing until you actually bought the record, because they just kind of had it on a white background. So you'd previously seen the Kayleigh single cover, and then they were just teasing what the album was going to be with this white background business. The XDR tape, we think that was probably the Chrome tapes, if anyone remembers those.
Yeah.
They were slightly more, had a bit more treble, I think, from memory, a slightly better sound. I think that was just the EMI version of a Chrome tape. And then the obligatory Japanese, which I love, and Jammies, one of Jam's favourite bands of the era, Tobruk, label mates, stable mates of Marillion. So obviously EMI thought they're onto a winner there with that, putting those both on the same ad in Japan.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
quite intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah,
They're amazing.
That Tobruk album's brilliant, by the way.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
It is good, yeah.
Although somewhat dated with the I listened to it the other week. As it happens, it's a little one of those ones that's a little bit dated with the keyboards, but it's brilliant. It's great.
UK Bon Jovi, wasn't it? Trying to be, I think.
That's really good.
Okay.
Another one was on ECT as well.
Yeah, that's true. So the Mighty Marillion have shifted 15 million albums over their career, and this was, I think, undoubtedly their biggest commercial success, certainly of the 80s. So do you want to go through the singles of the album, Gav?
Yeah, we won't necessarily go through the songs now, because we'll do that when we do the album. But yeah, so Kayleigh preceded the album. It was on the 7th of May. The album was 17th of June. Came out on all the usual formats. The B-side was Lady Nina, which was supposed it was going to be an American single, apparently, but I don't know if it ever. Well, it was a single later on, but they obviously put it on the B-side to get rid of it, because I know they didn't want it as a single over here. Typical Marillion, they always have the picture discs. But yeah, I mean, the thing with Kayleigh was it was a straight out of the gate massive hit. They had the normal, fans going to buy it, but something they never have had since, I don't think. Normal people bought it. It got on normal radio, and it got on Wogan and all these TV shows, and it just propelled it to number 2.
Very commercial, isn't it?
Yeah. So that was exactly what they wanted to set the album up, and it was exactly what they wanted in terms of getting EMI to take them seriously again. So yeah, it was perfect. Next up was after the album. It was August with Lavender. So really, they had to find another single. I mean, they knew about Kayleigh being a good one. They didn't have this lined up as the next single, and they called it Lavender Blue, because obviously, if you're aware of the album, it's very short. It's like 2 minutes long. Doesn't really have a proper ending. So they went in and recorded an extra keyboard part and an extra bit of vocal. I think there's an extra verse as well. So that became the second single. And again, beautiful picture disc with the guys with makeup on. And then the third single was Heart of Lothian in November 85. I guess it's slightly more of a traditional single. Chelsea Monday from their first album, Live on the B, and a video that echoed back to Minder. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Which was classic. It was in Dave's bar, just like in Minder, which was brilliant. So they're the singles.
Okay. The drummer boy stood on Arthur's seat there overlooking Edinburgh on the cover.
Indeed. Yeah. Lots of references throughout Fish's work to Edinburgh, Lothian in general. So yeah, this was the merch sheet that came with the album. Have you guys got this?
I didn't have the merch sheet. No.
No.
All right. Yeah, I got obviously I got the album when it first came out, so it had the merch sheet in it. Gatefold sleeve, and then the merch inside. It was just a black inner sleeve, not a printed inner. And you had a nice rainbow on your jacket. Anyway,
I've had a nice rainbow on my jacket.
Oh yeah, your patch.
Oh, amazing.
Your patch on your anorak.
I got my anorak from the first year,
1981.
Okay, so
someone likes Bungle, Zippy, and George.
There you go. Okay, that's the singles. Let's go on to the album. Let's kick off with you, Gaps, in terms of the opener.
Oh, the way it comes in, it's very haunting, very melancholic beginning to the album. But the way it goes and the way it seamlessly goes into Kayleigh at the end is brilliant, and they do that on all the tracks. The way it seamlessly knits together as it would do, because it's a concept album, so all the songs sort of blend into each other, which is why they had to do the extra ending for Lavender, which, as you can see on there, is very short. But yeah, love the way it comes in, because it's so sort of haunting, and then it goes into a really upbeat Kayleigh, even though the lyrics aren't that upbeat, but the music's great. Yeah, great from me.
Any other comments, Jam?
Only that when you're saying about the setup for the album, as with regards to, they'd said before, the next album, look forward to the next album, it's going to have 2 songs on it. Side 1 and side 2, and everyone's like, oh, they're taking the mick about having long songs. Because when I think back to my favorite, I love Script for Jester's Tear, and it had 6 songs on, which back then you'd never had 3 songs on the first side. And throwaway remark at the end of a previous tour, then coming out that actually it is a concept album. It's one continuous song with a break for you to turn it over. It's the first real concept album that I'd been into, and it's the fluidity of it is amazing. It's really amazing. I wasn't a massive proggy type of a person, so this for me was a different thing. Gav was the main man. He was the main Marillion fan. Marillion, Magnum Queen. Do you know what I mean? They were the biggies. Yeah, and he pushed these very much. But but not an easy one. I don't think to necessarily, encouraging your friends. What track do you get to listen to? It's a bigger thing. It's a vibe, and proven by them doing an album, you can't really dip into this album without. You need the whole thing, and you need.
Normally, if I was going to try and get you guys into a band, I'd choose the rockiest song on the album, and that would be a gateway into it. Like The Teacher off Chase the Dragon.
Did when you said that, I was exactly going to say The Teacher. Boom! There you go. But again, this is such a great album, and it's so different to what what I was as far as Marillion's concerned. But yeah, the fact that it was just the one continuous thing, it makes it a little bit harder when we've revisited this album, this record. Well, for me, it reminded me of just how good and how many references it will go through when we're talking about the songs individually. The amount of references that played a big part in our everyday life and that stuck with me now. And again, with this record, I can't believe how many of the lyrics I know. And I like to pick out, you look at any of our pods, and when we're talking about the classic albums and that, I myself, Gappy especially, like to pull out a lyric. It's really tricky with this album because the lyrics from Fish are just exemplary. They're just superb. They're so meaningful. There's so many. I'll be pulling out a few occasionally out of some of the tracks, but there's so many. You could literally just read the whole album out, the whole lyrics and every line. So yeah, Kayleigh, it's a fantastic pop song, but a superbly catchy chorus, and it nation, didn't it? It did actually capture the nation. People that say, "Oh, one-hit wonders." I mean, wow, ridiculous thing to say when you've got such a great band. But yeah, it's great.
If anyone
I lived down a small road in Oxfordshire called Henton, and they were building a new house around this time. And when it was finished, and I used to do a paper round and go around all the houses, and they'd called it Kayleigh after this song. It was brilliant.
Oh, great.
Fantastic.
Well, the history of, very briefly, the history of the Kayleigh thing. Fish used to have a girlfriend called Kay, and this was kind of a wraparound apology to all his girlfriends of the past, but specifically Kay, because he always put his band first, his career first, and so he had plenty of relationships that could have gone somewhere, but he dumped them in favor of touring and disappearing off, and which the right thing to do if you want to be a rock star. But so this was a kind of a melancholy, look back at the good times and kind of saying sorry to Kay, who was a real person. Her second name was Lee. So he put it together like that to try and kind of disguise who it actually was about. And for years, she didn't know the song was about her, apparently. And they eventually kind of made contact again. And sadly, she died a few years after they made contact again. So yeah, it's sweet.
Well, on that cheery note, let's move to Lavender.
Yeah, Lavender is about as strange a song as you could possibly put together for a hit single.
I must admit, when I first heard it, I absolutely hated it. But
I love this
listening
album.
to it now as a grown up, so to speak. Absolutely love this song.
No, I like this
brilliant
album.
Musicianship on all the instruments on this song are absolutely brilliantly played.
Yeah, despite this song, I still like the album. It was that case. Yeah, if I could have skipped, I would have. But it's cool. It fits and it makes sense now, as you say, as a grown up.
It does, yeah. And again, it's a melody in there that they revisit, and there's lots of melodies, aren't there, that are intertwined. The Heart of Lothian melodies all over the album. You don't really notice; it's just part of the whole piece, isn't it?
Yeah. But it gives a gateway into Bittersweet. So for me, it was just a gateway.
Yeah, because it was so short, wasn't it? And Bittersweet goes on for 8 minutes with all these little segments.
The first real proggy one on the album, isn't it? Bittersweet.
Yeah, I love it. It goes a bit dark for the first time, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's the first one. It's the first lyric, as far as I was concerned, where it's the train sleeps in a siding. The driver guzzles another can of lager.
Yeah,
it repeats lager, and it's just so. It's of a time as well of us. We'd be going lager every time it's said. Repeat it because it's fish. Repeating it.
We're sophisticated individuals.
Yeah, but in that, as you say, real downbeat. And again, it follows up with her mother called her beautiful. To her daddy. Her daddy said, "Oh." Yeah. And again, we're of this age. Oh my gosh, it's really it was quite dark, quite deep.
Very dark.
I was going to say, we forgot to mention that we're all fairly local to Aylesbury, which we mentioned on other podcasts, but obviously Marillion were our band, coming from our town. And there's a lot of references to Aylesbury throughout this album. So if I take you on a quick tour of Aylesbury, real quick, Market Square, obviously Market Square heroes, and at the bottom of Market Square is an archway through to where Friars was, which was a really important venue back in the day. The other corner at the bottom of Market Square takes you down Walton Street, where Fish's favourite pub was, which was the White Swan. If you go down to the bottom of that road and look across to your right, there's the station. Train sleeps in the siding.
Mm-hmm.
Go across the road, there's the canal. Obviously there's a lyric there, the mist crawls from the canal.
Yeah.
That's behind a theatre now that wasn't there in Fish's time when he lived in Aylesbury, called the Waterside. We're going to go and see Fish at the Waterside next year, which is going to be fantastic on his farewell tour. So you walk along the canal, and the route we're taking is from Fish's favourite pub to Fish's house. So go along the canal and up onto the main road. Across the road, there's Tring Road Cemetery on the right. I'm sure that would have inspired some lyrics. Go past Victoria Street, and on the left, there's Albert Street, and he lived at number 18 Albert Street. So that was his walk along the canal to the pub, bound to have inspired these lyrics. And in fact, on Fish on Friday years ago, he did allude to that was the route he used to take. So that was his regular walk.
Yeah, they used to do it. Funny enough, I was in Aylesbury last week. I don't live near Aylesbury anymore, and actually was more Oxford side than Aylesbury, so it wasn't a town that I frequented. And what was interesting, I think, first and foremost, there's a brilliant statue of David Bowie. That's what that reincarnation of Bowie, because he played the Fires, which is interesting. Maybe they should get something from Marillion as well, given that they are so iconically linked with the town. I was talking to a guy there, and he was talking about I think it was the Hobble on the Cobbles. They used to do a free concert in every year in Aylesbury, and in 2007, Fish headlined it. And for the final song, the band reunited and did Market Square Heroes in the Market Square of Aylesbury. I mean, that must have been amazing, and it was free. And we love stuff that's free, just like this podcast. So please give us a subscribe.
Very, very natural, but just for
seamless.
For the Market Square Heroes thing, in my career of 30 plus years, I worked in a bank that was actually in Market Square in Aylesbury. So I spent a good 8 years, and the cherry blossom in the Market Square is quite something. So having to do the drudgery of the work job that I had in the daytime, and yet when I'd get to look out, the bank actually looked out onto the Market Square, and there were buskers that were played there, which was the highlight of my day and my life. It was quite synonymous with Marillion, because you can't ignore it, especially the cherry. It's madness to be thinking, but such a lyric. Cherry blossom in the Market Square, and the Market Square Heroes song itself, which is, I love, one of my all-time favorite Marillion songs. Just brings there's so many things, as you say, Gav, local to us, that you really feel it, and you really feel the vibe. So yeah, they are a special one to us, I think, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a tour of Aylesbury. Yeah, thank you. We'll move on to Heart of Lothian. Now, this, interestingly, Jan was saying he hadn't really experienced much in the way of concept albums. I had growing up, two of which being Tommy and Quadrophenia, because my dad was a massive Who fan, that intertwined with Jethro Tull and Queen and the Stones and many other bands. But there's a bit at the beginning of Heart of Lothian where he's saying "Rain on Me" in the background, and I wonder if that's a throwback to Quadrophenia.
I think so.
He's certainly influenced by that, which always pricks my ears every time I hear that. I think, oh, that's the Who.
Especially live, he gives it full beans live.
Yeah. So that's cool.
And the lead up to that song, the lead up to that line, "Rain on Me," is the habit of the windswept sun. Before it says "rain." Now, for me, what that means simply is that as 16, 17-year-olds, we got from one place to another. We lived out in the sticks, 8-9 miles from Aylesbury. We had a bus service, if we were lucky, of every 2 hours. And we certainly didn't have any pound notes to spend on a bus. So we used the benefit of our thumb to get from one place to another.
Yeah, I was going to pick that one out because Gavin would say it all the time.
It was the windswept sun. Now, I also recall how you would pray for it to rain on me, because if it rained, you'd have a big chance of getting a lift.
You get more like
absolutely.
People gave a shit. They actually cared enough not to pick you up. But if it's raining and they saw me, little drowned rat me, getting wet, good, I'm going to get a lift. So you'd be literally rare. And we called it the windswept. We didn't. How are you getting home tonight? We go to college. How are you getting home? Windswept.
Windswept.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but there was a tactic that I used to use. Here's the thing, right? If you're walking down the road and you put your thumb out and they could only see your back, you never got picked up. If you turn around and face the car with your thumb up, I'm sure they used to think, "Oh my God, look at that little cherub hitchhiking. We need to pick him up." So you'd always get picked up if you face the car head on.
Deal.
We tried everything. We used to do the ZZ Top thing when all three of us would do it, or four of us. That used to get us a lift occasionally.
Okay, well,
there were other techniques as well, like two of your mates would be in the bush and one person would thumb it.
Yeah, the big one usually me in the bush because I look like a bit of a heathen.
Everybody piled out the bush into the back of the car.
And the final tactic I know for me was that I wouldn't show my face, deal, because I wasn't a cherub, but I did have long hair. So I would get in the car and they'd say, "Where are you going, love?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm going to." "Oh, hello." You think you were a young lady hitchhiking it on the road? Like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, the pub's fine." So that worked too.
Anyway, we digress. We had our hitchhiking stories from the mid-80s.
But talk about a thing that's completely disappeared. You know, no one hitchhikes, do they now? No one.
Okay. Any other comments on Heart of Lothian, third single from the album?
Yeah, just one other lyric. Sorry, it's
great bass playing in this song. That's my comment. That's what I pick out from it. And more lyrical genius, but there again, you can say that in every song.
Yeah, but it's just the build-up with Wide Boy and Curtain Call. Is when he says so quietly at the end, and the man in the mirror has sad eyes.
Yeah.
A massive insight into where he was and how he was feeling, I guess, growing up. And just the way, again, he says it, like with the rain on me, it's a real I think, an insight into Fish, and really stood with me. And an amazing end to the side. It's brilliant, I think. But yeah.
Okay, good. Let's move on to side 2 and Waterhole Express Bongo. So, Gav?
Yeah, the pub, I guess.
Drum
this
solo.
a little bit of a drum solo, a little bit more upbeat, isn't it, this one?
I've put this, it's a bit indie punk, this song. It's quite strange what they're doing musically on here compared to what they normally do.
I favoured side 2 for a very long time because of the trilogy of hits, because I knew them so well and they got so much airplay that I tended to favour side 2 just to avoid that. But now it's a bit more of a whole. I can listen to all of it without it being overplayed. But yeah, side 2 is always one of my go-to sides when it came to Marillion, because it's great. It's
when you drop
revisiting it for me, it's side 2 is better, I think.
But when you drop the needle in, it can actually start off with the beginning is so funky and so bongo-ish. It's superb, and it gets you there almost then into Lords of the Backstage. You're setting yourself up ready for Blind Curve.
So many different time signatures as well, aren't there? You know.
I wrote that down. I'm not very good on time signatures, but I think Lords of the Backstage starts off in 7/8, but
it does. Yeah,
so it is 7/8. I got it right.
Or you can do 4/4, then 3. You know, you can count it any different way. But interestingly, in the documentary that's accompanying the Deluxe Edition, which is also on YouTube if you want to cheat, about Misplaced Childhood, Ian Mosley says that he never really counted the weird time signatures. He'd just go with the bass. He'd know the melody. He wasn't like a technical drummer in the sense that he had to kind of chart it all out and understand it. He'd just listen and play to what he felt. And that makes more sense to me as a drummer, and not necessarily a technical drummer, that I wouldn't be there, my drum kit going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You just know it, don't you? You just know the tune and you play to the tune. And that's a lovely thing to think. You know, in these days, there were no click tracks, no metronomes used on the album. They just ebbed and flowed, which is very different from how they do it now, you know, because everything's tied into the effects and the lighting and all that kind of malarkey. But I love this organic, the whole thing pretty much played live and in long sections too. If you watch the documentary, they didn't just cut in and out every 2 minutes. They played the whole bloody thing, which is incredible, you know, and I love it.
So let's go to the longest song on the album, Blind Curve.
Well, it's sad, very sad bit, the Milo section. If you do a little bit of research, you know, where he sat and cried on the phone and never felt so alone. The Milo guy was one of Fish's best friends who actually died in a car crash. So we found out that he died when they were on tour in Fugazi, and he was in Toronto. And legend has it that he found out, and then he had to do, you know, 8 hours of interviews. And he said to each interviewer, look, you know, you're not going to get the best out of me today. I've just had some really terrible news, you know, bear with. And according to Fish, none of them gave a toss. None of them gave him any credit, any sympathy. You know, they just wanted, an interviewer threatened me with a microphone, probably comes from that. And at the end of the day of doing interviews, he just broke down and cried and cried and cried. It was so grisly, you know, there was no F's given for poor old Fish.
Was that the beginning of the end, do you think,
yeah, I mean, there were lots of situations where Fish was, because he was the main man and because he was so enigmatic, everyone wanted to speak to him, and the band probably enjoyed the fact that they could do a show and go to the next show and not have to do 20 hours of interviews, where Fish had to. And also he was driven. We'll come on to this when we talk about the live show, but he was driven and driven and driven, you know, and probably exhausted. But yeah, Milo was his friend called John Milet, he was the drummer in a band called Rage. And yeah, so he was, that's the bit there, and that is really sad, that part.
Yeah.
So,
and it certainly shapes, doesn't it? That shapes, that gives you a much bigger insight into how that's shaped, one would imagine, Fish's view and attitude to, well, the members of the press and the way that you get in particular was treated. It's shocking. It's awful. When I read that, it's a terrible thing to happen to anyone.
It's horrible,
anyone. But of course, because he was the star, and as you said there, Dill, how that then shaped him, going forward. You know, it's not surprising, is it? The way that where he's found himself. But quite a meandering song where that goes through. It takes us through, isn't it? Blind Curve.
Just missed out a little bit. Passing Strangers, the bit before. Milo has got an amazing Steve Rothery guitar solo in it. Steve Rothery, one of my favourite guitar players of all time.
Yeah,
and,
very underrated, actually.
Absolutely doesn't disappoint on this album. But the solo in Passing Strangers is fantastic.
Okay, so we'll stay with you, Gappy, and go on to Childhood's End.
Well, what I've written about Childhood's End is everything about this song is beautiful and magical, and it's listening to it recently. It's a song that's actually brought me to tears. Not afraid to say it, but it's just wonderful. That's all I can say about it, really.
It's like the sun coming up, isn't it? In a new dawn, you know.
Yeah.
He's realizing that it's not all doom and gloom, and it's, you know, he's had a change of heart and change of mind, and he's recognizing that the child is still there and it's him. And, it's a great concept,
and it signals the beginning. I love the way it does signal the beginning of the end, and in itself the journey of the album. It's, you know, the album, the way it starts the lift. When you think where this album's taken you, where you've been throughout the journey of the whole album, that it starts the lift, and it's so I love the way it does that, and it's really taking you, because you're so invested by this stage. I love the way it signals, and as I say, the end of the album itself as well, to take you into White Feather, which is such an uplifting feel. And I
think it's very Simple Mindsy. Feather, if you listen to it, it reminds me of them big time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to throw in but the ending, the Breakfast Club, the whole Simple Minds ending to the Breakfast Club movie, and how that's incorporated in the different movies. It really is a great way to bring something to leave you feeling in a really positive frame of mind, and that you can do anything despite, you know, the childhood and the journey. It's lovely, and it brings back all the melodies that you've had throughout the album. So clever, so musically, you guys, Gabs and Gaffio, with your musicality, it brings it all together so well. When you've got that musicality along with the lyrics that are so meaningful and so brilliant, that for me is what makes the album so special. Not just in a commercial way. It's so good. And I think I worry sometimes that this gets put to one side by, you know, Marillion fans, because it isn't a script, or Fugazi. It's got that commerciality that sometimes us rock fans or prog fans, whatever we want to call ourselves, sometimes shun a little bit, because it's got that commercial. It's quite commercial, that one, but it's brilliant.
But it was commercially successul, #1 in the UK. So amazing how well this album did. Okay, so as I said earlier, at the top end of the show, we had a couple of guys on this podcast that went to see Marillion on one of the last shows of this tour in the UK, tour or side of it anyway. So, Gav, do you want to just cover off some of the press ads?
Yeah, well, looking into this, we kind of reminded ourselves that the show that we went to was postponed from the February before. So no, from the October before. Yeah. So we went in February to Hammersmith Odeon, but it should have been October. So October 85 to February 86. So we didn't really remember that until we looked into this a bit more. And then, if anyone remembers, it ties in. They cancelled the tour because Fish lost his voice because he was being worked so hard. And the date times in with, if anybody remembers Lavender being on Top of the Pops in August, September, Fish didn't want to mime because that would imply that he had a voice, and he couldn't because the tour had been cancelled. So he had a big sheet of paper with all the lyrics, and he kept, like, every time there was a new line, he'd flip the page and there'd be a new lyric. And then in the guitar solo, it said guitar solo and an arrow pointing to Steve and stuff like that. And that was really smart, because then people didn't bellyache about him being, oh, if you can do that, you can do a tour. So that all ties in. But man, did they do some dates. I haven't pulled them all together, but they were still doing kind of celebratory gigs at the Marquee. Then you can see there they did Brixton Academy. They're doing Hammersmith Odeon at the beginning of the tour, Hammersmith Odeon at the end of the tour. And then we know, because we went to it as well, they did the garden party. You know, they were being slogged. They were working their asses off at this point in time. You know, quite rightly so, you could argue, but also, you know, give the guy a chance for his voice to recover, and don't ask him to do 5 hours of interviews every day.
Yeah. To the detriment. That's the thing, isn't it? It's when you see, you go, wow, oh, cool, Hammersmith Odeon, 3 nights. And then another 3 nights at the end. Yeah, because they were literally, it was the crossover. They had become successful. They'd got the tour dates out there. Then suddenly, oh, that's sold out. Oh, that's sold out. To have to go back to do another run. And then they slipped in a Brixton Academy, which is a straight, 5,000 people, just like, boom, yes, get them 5,000 tickets sold or whatever it is. Yeah. Great venue. That would have been a great place to see them. But
I didn't even know they'd done that until I looked into this.
No, but even then, to then think, oh, right, well, actually, they want so much of this beast that is this Marillion. Let's get Milton Keynes Bowl. That's, what's that, 30, 40, 50? It's a proper sized place. Let's get them there. Let's sell. How many tickets can we sell for that?
That's quite remarkable. That Brixton Academy is a Christmas show, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they always did a Christmas show. Yeah. They just upgraded from the Marquee to
Brixton.
I'm guessing the Hammersmith Odeon was fully booked up.
Yeah, well, they it looks like they shoved a show at the end as well, like Iron Maiden did with their matinee. They did a charity show for the Double O charity on the 7th. Okay. So
that's the program. You got the program still, Gav?
Yeah, I put this in because this kind of illustrates that the tour was cancelled and hastily rescheduled for the year after. Because if you look at the one on the left, 85. It's got the proper graphics for 85.
Amazing, isn't it?
And then just shoved 86 over the top there. Look.
Wow.
So yeah, that's fine. We had that happen a lot, but yeah, the program's pretty good. There are the boys there. Loads of artwork from Mark Wilkinson as usual, and all the lyrics to the album. You don't need them because they're in the album, but yeah, they're the stack of tour dates there. And the merch sheet. There she is.
There you go.
Missing the bottom because old Gavster bought himself with that t-shirt.
Move on to the next slide. You can see the t-shirt probably.
Yeah.
There we go. So yeah, and a lot of tours in those days were sponsored by Harp.
Sharp.
Yeah.
Stage Sharp.
Guinness, wasn't it? Wasn't it the same people?
Yeah. Do you know what it might have been? It's definitely Irish though, wasn't it? Yeah. Irish lager.
Because I think they were serving Harp still when we went to Dublin.
Do you know what? I think you might be right. Yeah.
It didn't really last very long, but anyway,
it did in the King's Head. It lasted forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, they're your t-shirt options, and I had both those.
Awesome. Bet you wish you still had them.
I do. Yeah.
Squint into them.
The obligatory famous old Hammersmith Odeon ticket before they turned into the cinema type tickets, and now
both equally crap.
That you wouldn't have a clue who it was for.
No, they used to stamp on the back. So for any kids watching this, thinking who on earth were you going to see, on the back they'd stamp the band, which
you can't see on mine, and you never could either. It's not that it's faded; it was just
quite a few.
Boris, who was responsible for putting the stamper on, couldn't be asked.
Yeah. It just there's only a stamp on it, but that amazed how many of mine you literally couldn't quite read. It's amazing. Couldn't quite see.
So that was it. So that's the back of the circle for me and Jam.
Yeah. So it was Jam and Gav went to the gig, and there were a couple. There's one famous comment. You guys keep talking about this gig, which I'm sure you're going to allude to in a few minutes. But bearing in mind, this was at the same time we were all seeing bands like Motorhead and not far off Metallica and goodness knows who else.
Anthrax,
Anthrax and Iron Maiden, and jam.
It just shows the immense variation of the variety of our bands. Even though we were metalheads, in our denim and our leather and long hair, we were Anthrax one week, Marillion the next, FM the week after. It was such. Oh, we talk about genres a lot and hair metal and everything that we adored. We loved so much of it, and all of us like different bits and would have different area of expertise, however you wanted to look at it. But we had tickets, as you say, we had tickets for this quite way in advance, didn't we? And then the build up to it, and then the album. And I really liked Script. I really liked the album and Forgotten Sons and Market Square Heroes.
Yeah.
But when we revisited, and I'm looking at this, it's a great set list,
and
it's really great. And the way it's sandwiched Misplaced Childhood in the middle there, Gav, I felt quite honoured. I felt quite special that to have someone playing the whole record. I was really quite in awe of, because that didn't happen as far as I was concerned back in the day. We see lots of this nowadays. You see lots of this now. 20th, 30th, 40th anniversary of an album.
Played in full.
Do the whole played in full. And everyone's like, oh, wow. So that didn't happen then.
No.
And the fact it did, was fantastic. Really good.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And then Fish did his little wind up. So we got 2 long songs from the first album, 2 long songs from the second album. Because Emerald Lies, I think, was just a little intro thing. I don't think they played the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then he'd come back on stage with a drink saying, "This is the last song for tonight." Boo. And then they go and play the whole of Misplaced Childhood. So it was a bit of a wind up. But yeah, it's kind of a shock for him to say that, if you didn't know, which we didn't know, I don't think. But bloody brilliant. And then they come on for the encores. The Gizzard Bun is a thing where all the Marillion fans used to chuck buns at them. I think it started in Scotland. I'm not sure it was particularly popular, and I think they probably wanted to kill it by the time they got to Hammersmith.
Yeah.
But, it's just a Marillion thing, like Shouting for Grendel was 4 years earlier. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see this on a high quality video now. Brilliant.
But the actual Misplaced Childhood song, when he played it, it converted ridiculously well, didn't it? It sounded because again, we keep talking about they are so good. And again, when you say nowadays, it samples, tracking the key, everything about it was brilliant, and it came across and it sounded so great live. How did it have any right to sound so good live? No, as a concept album, to play it start to finish, and it just you almost stood in awe, breathing it. It was an experience, wasn't it?
The thing with Marillion is everyone is so good at their jobs.
Yeah.
They're proper brilliant musicians. The bass playing, the guitar, the keys, the drumming, they're just great. There's not a weak link.
No.
And you've got Fish and his personality and his lyrics. What a band.
It did convert. It really did come across. Whereas it was such a different thing as well. We weren't down the front, jumping up and down to metal, thrashing Mad by Anthrax. This is a different thing. It's a different feel, but so awesome all the same.
This gig was sandwiched between AC/DC on January the 16th at Wembley Arena, and then Ozzy Osbourne on February the 21st, a couple of weeks after this one. So Hammersmith Show, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
We were going to then. Insane. Yeah. That's whilst we were studying for our exams, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Studying hard.
All the studying.
Yeah, so the thing that one of the major takeaways that we had at the time was just, it was quiet.
It was the quietest show
maybe because we're, up in the nosebleeds of Hammersmith Odeon, and they didn't hung the speakers like they do now. Could have been that. We don't really know. But I remember me and Jam sitting there singing away and kind of feeling self-conscious because we were louder than the band. So that's the only negative I can remember.
We did tend to sing. We did like to sing, and we like to sing a backing vocal.
Yeah.
I remember at one point, I can't know if it's me or you, one of us sort of were a bit conscious that we were belting out a bit too loud, because you don't want to be that guy.
No, you don't.
You pay money to hear fit, And I remember, you gave sort of, you were whistling along, and I was going, what are you doing? You like doing it down. Keep whistling down, Gav. But just superb. But great.
Brilliant. Okay, good stuff. Some photos from the gig, Gav?
Yeah, this I haven't got this, but it does exist as an official bootleg. Marillion did a kind of a front row club through the fan club, so that's why the artwork exists actually for the show we went to, Jam. So yeah, I mean it's hundreds and hundreds of quid to find this now.
Yeah.
So I don't have it, but yeah, it's pretty cool. They recorded everything in those days.
But you do have a bunch of other stuff. Signs.
Yes, very quickly. Let me just. Marillion went through re-releasing all their catalogue, Fish years, and then they're going through the H years in these lovely vinyl and CD Blu-ray box sets. I wanted to support Fish and Marillion, so I saved up all my pennies and I bought one from Fish and one from Marillion because they used to do the signed. They did signed versions, and they put a A4 signed sheet in it as well. So across all their albums, I've got everything either signed by Fish on across different formats, basically. So for Misplaced Childhood, Fish did the CD, and the band did the album, which is really cool. They all match as well, which I love. I hate it when bands do re-releases and don't match spines up and things like that. And there's inside, there's the frameable print. I mean, these box sets are amazing. There's a show which is the same as me and Jam saw from Utrecht, which is the same lineup, the same set list as we've got here. But yeah, they're a thing of beauty and quite collectible now. I think
when I was showing, I literally just picked up one of these box sets, and I happened to pick up Fugazi because it's
nice.
And again, the quality is superb, and the thing that you get with Marillion, obviously, as we all know, is the tremendous artwork. It's just
this was in the box set. Yeah.
Just a thing of beauty, and you got everything about it is just amazing.
Okay. So what came next?
Well, quite a lot. Marillion were workers. They did an album a year and all this touring, which everyone did back in the day. But, with the amount of touring they did was quite a feat. So there were a couple of things. There was Brief Encounter. Jam, did you have that?
Yeah, he's got that.
Yeah. There you go.
Brilliant. Yeah. Brief Encounter was... April 86 for US and Germany only, and then because they did a tour of Germany festivals, like they did Milton Keynes, and then they went off to Germany. This is German only. It's just Garden Party live version with Kayleigh and script on the B-side. So the EMI were just trying to find pockets of sales wherever they could. They never really made it with Fish in the US, despite trying. Like I said earlier, they tried to go with Lady Nina as a single because they thought that would be more American, better for the American market, but didn't. And then the next big album was Clutching at Straws, which came later.
Famously Fish's favourite album with Marillion.
Yeah.
And some of his influences on the front cover as well, I believe. So, check it out. Okay. Then we move on to the Garden Party, which Gav's already mentioned to it. And if you've not been through our back catalogue podcasts, we take you all the way back to this in 1986 as well. So please give that a watch. What a brilliant bill that is. And many of our favourites on that bill too. So please go and check that out.
I'll link this at the end. So watch to the end, and you can just click on this if you haven't watched it already. And then if their world couldn't get any more surreal, they went off touring with Queen. It's absolutely incredible. 86 for them.
And played some huge shows, particularly in Germany as well.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Fish and Freddie on stage together.
Fantastic.
Yeah, what were they doing there? Any idea, Gav?
I think they did a bunch of the cover versions that Queen like to do, the Tutti Frutti and stuff like that. So they just got Fish out for that.
And what a strange bill. Queen Marillion, level 42. And Gary Moore. Level 42 sandwiched in there.
Yeah.
Great bass player, but hardly the right music, really. But there you go.
That'd been a great day, though.
It would have been great. So I quite like Young 42 as a pop band.
Yeah, so I mean, great variety. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be happy there. Yeah.
I wonder if any of these venues were the same ones that we went to Monsters of Rock, Gav, in 80s.
Yeah, it's the same circuit, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right.
Okay. Good stuff. Right. Well, that's Marillion. Sadly, we've got no Marillion on our live channel, but keep a beady eye out because we will be uploading some videos of Fish when he plays Aylesbury, and particularly Market Square Heroes. I'm sure that will get an upload onto our live channel. So please check that out. Please give it a subscribe, as this is a separate channel to the one you're watching this on. And if you want to get in contact with us or see what we're up to or look at some of the other things that we've been doing, you can do that on Facebook, on Tales from the PowerAge. We're on Twitter, and we're approaching 3,000 interactions and posts on that. So we're pretty busy on there too. On TTFTPR, you can check out what we're up to online at www.talesfromthepowerage.com. Or if you wanted some merch, you can get that from redbubble.com. TFT PowerAge. So please check it out. And as I said at the beginning of the show, please give us a sub. It really helps our motivation to get up and do these shows. Hit the hell's bell. Give us a sub. Give us a like. Give us some comments. Give us some of your gravy. Have a great day, everyone. See you later.
Bye.
Cheers,
Yeah,
guys.
bye-bye.